right. Now we're cooking. Okay. What? So we have PJ Howland, the layoff volunteer.
Scott, the layoff
Scott.
volunteer.
Scott, the volunteer. Yeah. Scott, the newest member of, although Scott had been with the company for only a few months, he had proved to be an excellent employee. Surprised PJ when Scott said, "Hey, PJ, I want to know since I'm the new guy, I get it if you please let it be me." Not sure how to respond in the moment. PJ simply thanked Scott, went back to his work. PJ wondered about how he should treat Scott's request. All right. If you're in Scott's shoes, what might your thoughts and feelings be in this situation? What might you hope to convey to PJ?
It, I'm definitely probably looking at this from a different perspective than what they're trying to portray. I don't necessarily think that was a selfless act. I think it was um, a pragmatic act.
Yeah.
I look at it from a perspective of if I'm going to be laid off, I want to know about it. Like
Right.
let's just talk about it and get it over with and get it done. Because I gotta find a new job if it is, and it's
Sure.
more of a hey, not necessarily a situation of I want to protect everybody else. I think it's more of a situation of I mean I know if you're gonna have to make layoffs, I'm the new guy. I know it's going to be me.
Yeah.
Um, and so just tell me sooner than later that that's going to happen. Like that's my thought process on it. To look at this from a selfless point of view, I don't necessarily know if it is.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest with you, my route would almost have been I wouldn't have said that in the first place at all. Um,
So
Even if I am the new guy at a place, if this is providing for my family, like this is my livelihood, I'm not going to go to the boss and say, "Hey, if you're going to lay someone off, make it me." I'm going to say, "Hey, if anything, I'm going to go to him and say, "Hey, I know I'm the new guy, but you've seen my talents and I heard some layoffs are coming up. I'd hope you consider giving me a chance, to prove my worth here. And, you know, I just got hired, give me, if you're going to fire somebody, fire Doug over there who's 60 years old, that has been here for years. He's at the end of his stuff. I've got a young family I'm trying to provide for. I not necessarily throw all of that on his plate, but just point out the observation, hey, I haven't even had a chance to really prove myself yet. So, you know, I don't know.
yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting scenario. I'm not sure how likely the scenario is.
Yeah.
And so this one's a little bit more difficult for me to go, gosh, this is what I would do in that situation, and these are my feelings if I were Scott.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think that I would ever be Scott in
Yeah.
that mindset.
If I
Um,
was, what might I hope to convey to PJ, it would be in some form or another, don't fire me. And if you are, to your point, you got to let me know before the day you're going to let me go so I can line something else up for my family.
Absolutely, yeah. Give me some
Because,
time.
yeah, it's always funny in the working world. I've always thought it interesting, but oftentimes when you're the employee, the respectful thing to do in our culture is give them 2 weeks notice at least, right?
Mhm.
What's funny is oftentimes if they need to make abrupt changes, they're liable to let you go same day.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that would probably be, if it's gonna be me, you got to give me a heads up, man, and make it easier for me so I can, you know, not I can minimize the amount of unemployment time that I have. Okay. If you
yeah.
were in PJ's shoes, what would you like to understand more deeply before responding to Scott's generous and apparently selfless offer to be the first to be laid off. So we'll handle that part first.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and if I were PJ in that situation, which first I'd think this is really weird. Why are you telling me? Um, and I like to think that I'm a little more, mm, a little more, can't think of the word I want. Um, I I don't think that I would necessarily, if I'm going to lay people off, I don't think I would personally do it by seniority.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be because I think I tried to look at the bigger picture thing and see what, where's the opportunity, where does that happen? And I know that, like, for example, during COVID, there were companies that used it as an opportunity to lay off people that they should have laid off before.
Yeah.
Um, and as much as I hate saying that, but I think that's the better route to go is if you've got to lay people off, you have to look at it. Okay, who are my hardest workers? Who's going to give me a full effort? Who's going to work harder? Who's going to, excuse me, that hit.
Yeah.
Who's going to be most productive for this company? And whether that's Scott, who's had a short period of time, or Steve, who's been here for 15 years, but he's kind of just going through the motions now. I think I would look at it from that perspective. So if Scott came up to me, I'd be like, "Hey, Scott, appreciate your offer. I'm definitely going to have to do considerations if that comes around, and we'll make the right decision for the company and for the people." So that's where we're going to be at. So, and that's where I would leave it. I mean, I wouldn't go into
Absolutely.
further definition with him.
I think you nailed it. I have no other, opinion on that. You nailed it on the head of how to handle that. How could you approach the conversation to make it safe for Scott to share additional thoughts and feelings? Well, that's just you just got to approach it with a question, why and if I'm PJ talking to Scott, I would ask what caused him to do that? Why would you present yourself as the first to get, you know, and just let him share his feelings. And if he was like, well, because I'm the newest here, I have blah blah blah, let him share his piece. And then I would probably respond very casually, just what you said. Hey, I appreciate that. And it makes sense where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, I have to do what's best for the company. And it could be anyone at this point that that just generalizing it and taking it off him. It's like from what I've observed, always a little bit of praise goes a long way in those conversations, but you've been a great employee thus far. And I don't want you to think your time, your tenure here in the company is going to affect my decision. And if it, like you said, if it were to be the case, I would come to you and let you know beforehand that let's say all the employees are performing excellently. Well, then you're going to have to take in those outside factors to which very rarely is that the case where there's not an employee that's kind of sticking out that's like, hey, we should probably get rid of this guy.
Right.
But if they were, and tenure came to be the thing where it's like, we'll just let the newest guy go so that way he can move on and do something else. Well, then that's where it's going to come down to be. I don't know if there's really any other way to have that conversation. Just like ask him to share his piece, share his additional thoughts. Why would that be? And then move from there.
Yeah. Nope. I agree. I agree.
If you were PJ, what would you hope for Scott to understand? How would you
I think,
communicate these things in a way that PJ would receive and understand?
I think the biggest thing you portray to Scott is, you know, the decisions we make, we don't make lightly. We never make lightly. We make them in a way that we have to determine two things. One, what's best for the company, and two, really what is best for the employees. Um, and that there are multiple factors that we're going to be considering outside of just, oh, well, you've been here the shortest, you're going home.
Yeah.
And so just letting him understand that, he and I think the other second thing is at this point in time, even it says in the first paragraph, PJ, new clients would almost certainly materialize, and PJ wasn't especially worried.
Yeah.
This could be a situation of no concern. So Scott's, maybe that's the bigger issue, right? Is alleviating Scott's concern about the situation. Scott, hey, I'm not really worried about it, man. We're going to get more customers. You guys are doing a heck of a job. Um, they're going to come along. This just, I'm open and transparent with you guys, but I think this is a worst case scenario that I don't foresee taking place. And
Sure.
so maybe that's the bigger vision that you explain, and you tell Scott not to overly worry about it at this point because you have confidence that they're doing their job and they're going to bring in the customers that are needed.
Right. I agree. Definitely agree. That's pretty solid there. We'll just go and jump to part two of the case and see what ends up happening here. Um, share this.
Is there a part two?
Yeah, so each week there's a part two. We've done it on some weeks we haven't, which some of them I read forward into the part two. And you can always find them when you come in here. This is, the case study team aspect. And then you come down in the team leader side and you come to the agenda. And then it pull up what the team leader is supposed to do. And then it'll pop up read part two of the case. So we discuss everything and then we'll see what happens here.
Oh.
So I'll read it here. Every 6 months, PJ reviewed each employee on his team. The reviews were based on the company's core values. PJ always began reviews by focusing on a core value the employee exemplified and giving specific examples. Then he would talk about a core value where the employee had room to improve. PJ recalls, I hate giving critical feedback. It's not my strength, but I know that being direct with love is the way to do it. So I called him out. I said, look, tenacity is one of our core values, and you came to me and offered yourself up on a silver platter. You are worth so much more than that. You have the potential to do this. I see you being the best SEO specialist that our company has. You have that potential in you. That's why I've given you these clients. That's why I coach you on this. You're a killer employee, so don't think that way. That wasn't tenacious, and we're a tenacious group. I think you can do better. Years later, when PJ was leaving the company for a new opportunity, Scott pulled him aside and said, hey, I just want you to know that when you said that to me, it turned everything around. My manager before you was, sure, laissez-faire. Is that how
Mm-hmm.
you say that? About my
Mm-hmm.
growth, lackadaisical. I don't know why they couldn't just said that right. And didn't hold me to high expectation. When you said what you said made me feel stronger. I feel like I have a stronger sense of identity, and I decided this is what I want to do. I want to be the best SEO specialist we have. Now Scott is the director of SEO operations. PJ says it was a really great experience for me stepping out of my comfort zone. Knowing that being direct but backing it up with love changed the course of his life, which was really rewarding for me. Question one, do you believe that PJ understood all that he needed to about Scott? Explain your reasoning.
I
Well,
mean, I guess the technical question would be no, because he didn't necessarily understand Scott's thought process.
yeah,
He didn't necessarily know Scott felt weak, and that's why he did it. Weak, maybe not be the right word, but he didn't feel as strong, and that's why he did it.
right.
Um, so I guess there's that. Um, but at the same time, I don't think you have to know every detail about an employee to be able to make the decisions you make. And maybe he did get that understanding just because of the fact that Scott was bringing up the idea to begin with. Maybe he could sense Scott's concern or fear in his job performance or how he's doing or everything. And so uh, PJ was able to kind of bring him back down to reality of things. So I guess there's that thought process too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he nailed it on the head. Was people who are there's this fine line between being a people pleaser and thinking that's going to get you the best in the world, and also being a complete, you know, D-bag, for lack of a better word, and
Mhm.
not being in tune with those emotions that a boss has. But like we going back, if if we didn't know what happened, ended up happening, there's a very good chance if you have the wrong boss and he hears you say, "Hey, if you're going to fire someone, just make it me first," they just fire you on the spot.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Thanks for making it easy for me. You're done.
Yeah.
And because the reason for that is, like, if you're that willing to give up the job and not fight for it, that shows your commitment level. And that's where he's saying tenacity. I get it that it's not tenacious of him, but also I'd go a step further and I just say it's not very comforting from an employee to say that to you. If you're a boss, the last thing you want to hear when layoffs are rolling around is someone coming to you saying, "Might as well be me." Now, because he knows Scott and the type of person he is, he knew he was coming from a good place. PJ's a decent enough boss from the sounds of it, where he's willing to give him a shot. But I seriously, like, my boss right now, if you went up to him and just said that, he'd be like, "Okay, sounds like you're done," and you'd be done.
Yeah.
So, good. What gospel and or leadership principles explain why PJ's response had such a lasting impact on Scott? Gospel or leadership principles? Um, Obviously doing it with love. He expressed that a lot, which the scriptures say, the Lord reproves with sharpness and then after shows a greater amount of love, which is a great thing that we can all try to implement. Um,
I mean, I think even in this situation where and it sounds like PJ was almost like, maybe frustrated, it's not the right word, but he was like slightly taken aback by the fact that this kid was doing that.
yeah,
And so he's like, he's um he didn't allow his anger to cloud his judgment, or his frustration to cloud his judgment. He was like, "No, dude, what are you talking about? This is it. This is my feelings on it. You can do better. Do
yeah.
better."
And that's exactly what it was, because he had already given him, if he's the SEO specialist in the company, he saw the potential in him. That's why he gave them those clients. And that's a key in there as well, is depending on what you're doing in the company, he was pointing out you're not just a grunt, if you will. Like, you're not just the guy turning the wrench on the car or anything like that. You're, you're the guy I've given these clients to. I coached you on this. You're going to be a good employee. What you did that day, don't ever do that again,
Yeah.
basically. Know your worth.
Yeah.
And that is a leadership skill that we see in the scriptures all the time, where someone will offer themselves up, or they'll do something that they think will please somebody, and then the leader or the whether it be the Lord himself is just like, "Why would you ever even say that?"
Yeah. Know your value.
Yeah. And is there anything you would have done differently than PJ? Why or why not? Well, I think he did great. And to be honest with you, if I own a company in the future and someone were to come to me and say, "Hey, I know times are tough. If you're going to fire somebody, make it me." I would hope I would have the patience in that moment to not just turn around and fire him right on the spot. Um, I would hope that I had the patience and the love to call them in, give them a few months' time to track their progress after that. Because sometimes it's interesting that in the beginning it said that over the next, 6 months, I think, every 6 months. So I don't know how soon this happened after, like, this conversation after the first one, but I assume there was some time there where he was able to analyze and see. Well, is his worry about being fired making him lazy at work? Because if that's the case, it makes it easy, the decision. It makes it like, okay,
Right.
then you are done. But he gave him some time, and from the looks of it, he seems to be doing really well still. And so, um, ultimately, I would say there's probably not a lot to do different if you want this outcome, if you want to have a good impact on this young man's life, and you want him to say something to you like, hey, I just want you to know that when you said that to me, it turned everything around.
Right.
Well, if it turned everything around, that means you probably did it pretty dang well. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, no, I think what PJ did was the right route, and he wasn't soft in his response, which I don't think you can be, and he did a good job with it. So yeah, I'd agree.
yeah. Well, cool, brother.
All right.
That's it, man. And I'm gonna send this over to our man Elijah too. Sad to not hear from him today. I hope everything's okay over there
Yep.
because he's in Johannesburg.
Is that
So,
where he is? I didn't know
yeah,
where he
he's in
was.
Johannesburg, which is in South Africa, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, okay, my man. Well, you have a great weekend and a
Yes,
great
sir.
week, and we'll catch. I think what are we? We're going to be in week 10 next week.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's flying by, man.
Yep.
Do you graduate this semester? You got another one after this? No,
No.
you got some time.
Yeah, I am one or two classes at a time here, and
Hey, that's
technically
cool,
in,
man.
I'm technically in my senior year, but I've still got some classes to get through.
Cool. Yeah, this is my last one, man. I just got the
Good for you.
approval from, you have to submit for application approval, and they call it application pending. So what that means is it's that you're approved, but that means or it's called pending complete. So I'm on track to get my diploma as long as I get a passing grade in all my courses right now. And I only have four of them, but
Good for
uh
you.
thank you. I'm wanting to be done, man. So
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
you take it easy, buddy, okay?
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.